Now, on the 20th century, born to kill, Jeffrey Dahmer and Ted Bundy. The fascination and the horror of two of the most vicious serial killers in American history. One, Jeffrey Dahmer, killed and horribly mutilated 17 victims.
He ate body parts, played with heads, painted them.
Ted Bundy's reign of terror left at least 30 women dead in 5 states.
I think he was born to kill.
Two brutal murderers who committed acts beyond comprehension. I'm Mike Wallace, and this is the 20th century. On the outside, Jeffrey Dahmer looked like anything but a killer. Pale and blonde, he'd be hard to pick out of a crowd because his appearance was so unremarkable. But beneath that bland exterior lurked a rage that exploded in his mindless slaughter of 17 innocent young men. And it was only by chance that his killing ways came to an end.
A gruesome discovery in Milwaukee, Wisconsin today. It may turn out to be one of the nation's worst mass murder cases ever.
Nobody in this working-class Milwaukee neighborhood ever imagined the horrors police would find inside the Oxford apartment house. Rooms littered with human body parts, some crammed into a freezer, the number of victims still unknown, but one investigator says there could be 15.
All we can tell you is that it is a number of homicides, multiples.
At this time, we have no identifications on any of the specimens that we have recovered.
Jeffrey Dahmer's crimes were discovered by 2 police patrolmen when they were flagged down by a young man with a handcuff dangling from one wrist. Tracy Edwards said he had escaped from Dahmer's apartment after being threatened there with a knife.
Well, I had my head turned like this, looking at the fish tank, you know, and before I knew it, he threw a handcuff on me and had a big blade up under my heart, you know, telling me if I don't do what he says, he's gonna kill me, you know.
Edwards led the 2 officers to the Oxford apartment complex.
This was Jeffrey Dahmer's apartment, the site of what some Milwaukee police are calling the murder factory.
Nothing in the experience of the policemen could have prepared them for what they found in apartment 213. They then began the distasteful task of cleaning out the apartment.
From his apartment, they carried off boxloads of grisly remains, a refrigerator carrying 3 human heads, some barrels of acid, and stacks of photos showing dismembered bodies. Except for a persistent foul odor coming from the suspect's apartment, neighbors say they never had reason to be suspicious of foul play.
Personally, I've noticed the smell for about 6 to 8 months.
When you went into the apartment, did you smell an odor?
It stunk.
What did it smell like?
Rotten meat.
And you noticed it, and he said he had a problem with his freezer?
Yep, with his freezer.
Today's discovery brought this man to the scene, hoping to learn if his brother Earl Lindsay, missing since April, might have been a victim.
We're just praying, not only for him, but the rest of those victims that was in there too. I mean, they're somebody's children too, you know.
Saying only the Milwaukee victims are mostly adult males, police say it may take a long time to identify the remains, to connect the murders to missing persons here and throughout the nation.
Authorities are still sorting through the body parts and other gruesome items that they removed from Dahmer's downtown apartment. Police are reviewing videotapes found at the scene, along with photos that reportedly show bodies in various stages of dismemberment.
On July 24th, Jeffrey Dahmer confessed to murder.
Jeffrey Dahmer's confession contained in this 3-page affidavit is gruesome and detailed. Dahmer says he lured his victims to his apartment where he would drug them, strangle them, and dismember their bodies, and then boil their heads to remove the flesh. Dahmer's attorney says his 31-year-old client has this to say about the slayings.
He said, quote, he has no one to blame but himself, not the police, not the courts, and not the probation department. He said there comes a time when you have to be completely honest, and this is the time.
The first victim identified was 23-year-old Oliver Lacey, who had disappeared on July 15th. His head was found in Dahmer's refrigerator and his heart in the freezer. Lacey's mother, Catherine, identified him.
I wanted to find out. I know they came and told me this was my son, but I wanted to see for myself.
The question on everyone's mind was how Dahmer had gotten away with murder for so long. In fact, at the time of his arrest, he was on probation for molesting a 13-year-old boy. His probation officer said that she had never even visited Dahmer's apartment. In part, she said, because she was overwhelmed by her caseload. But then, Jeffrey Dahmer didn't look like a mass murderer.
That's what shocks me is, to know somebody that, he seemed a quiet, nice person, and he turned around and this happened.
The man neighbors call a nice person took Polaroid pictures of his victims while they were alive and in various stages of dismemberment. Sources close to the investigation report Dahmer has also confessed to cannibalism. Police refused to comment, but they did say the number of victims could rise as they continue to gather evidence about Jeffrey Dahmer and his killing ways.
As the tragedy unfolded, some of the victims were given names and faces.
Today, police identified 3 more victims. One of them, Jeremiah Weinberger, was last seen early this month leaving a Chicago bar with a man matching Dahmer's description. Dahmer's statements now lead police to believe his grisly crime spree has been going on for about a decade in Wisconsin, Illinois, and his home state of Ohio.
In fact, Dahmer confessed to killing his first victim in Ohio 13 years earlier when he was only 18.
After sifting and digging for several hours, police today found bone fragments on the woody site near an Akron suburb where Jeffrey Dahmer says he strangled, then dismembered hitchhiker Stephen Hicks in 1978, just after Dahmer graduated from high school.
Dahmer claimed that he brought Hicks home with him, and when Hicks tried to leave, Dahmer hit him on the head with a barbell and then dismembered him.
After he was dismembered, he then took the bones and then smashed them. So the bones may not be any bigger than half of the size of a hand.
Dahmer's childhood in Ohio was deeply troubled. He was described as a loner, often sullen and unhappy, who skinned and mutilated animals for pleasure.
This is a house Jeffrey Dahmer grew up in. Neighbors who remember the Dahmer family say they were not very social, and young Jeffrey usually played alone.
Jeff Dahmer, I can't believe it. He's just such a quiet, he seemed a very harmless guy.
Chip Crowfoot says the biggest oddity surrounding Dahmer in junior high was his experimentation with alcohol. Classmates thought Jeffrey was studious, always going to class with a briefcase. But Crowfoot says it was usually filled with booze instead of books.
By the time he was a senior in high school, his parents had divorced, and Dahmer was drinking heavily.
I remember seeing him, like, towards the end of high school, senior parties and stuff like that. I'd see him, and he was usually drunk.
After high school, Dahmer spent several years in the Army. He then moved to Milwaukee, and in 1985, he got a job as a clerk at a chocolate company. Dahmer became fascinated with horror movies. He began cruising gay bars, shopping malls, and bus stops in search of victims.
The first 4 men who've been identified had all been killed within the last month. Dahmer met one victim after the June 30th Gay Pride Parade in Chicago. Matt Turner apparently agreed to pose nude for money and traveled with Dahmer back to Milwaukee.
Today in Milwaukee, the first of several memorial services planned for Dahmer's victims.
He makes me lie down in green pastures.
This one for 31-year-old Anthony Hughes, who disappeared in May and who was remembered by a still stunned family.
I always love you very much. Your stepson, Terry Hunt.
One victim, 23-year-old David Thomas, leaves behind a young son and a grieving girlfriend.
They don't have any parts of his body left where they can have a regular funeral for him. And that was, that's what hurt the most.
With the mourning came anger. Anger that the police hadn't acted sooner.
I knew all along that happened to him, that someone did something to him, but no one listened.
Many felt the police were slow to react because many of Dahmer's victims were minorities and believed to be homosexuals.
If it would have been, a white boy or a white girl been missing someone important, they would have made a big thing about it.
One young man who escaped Dahmer's designs claimed he reported to the police that he'd been drugged and nearly strangled by Dahmer. He said the police, apparently thinking it was a lover's quarrel, didn't listen.
And despite the fact that I kept telling them I didn't know the man, and they basically just laughed at me.
The police also ignored a 911 call made about Dahmer almost 2 months before he was caught.
In Milwaukee today, the authorities released tape recordings in the case of alleged serial killer Jeffrey Dahmer. The tapes were made last May, the morning police responded to a 911 report that a naked boy was fleeing Dahmer's apartment.
He's been beaten up real bad, and he's fell out, and people are trying to help him stand. He can't stand. He's bloody. He has no clothes on. He is very hurt.
That was only one of several 911 calls Milwaukee police received about the incident. All the callers reported seeing a naked and bleeding boy running down the street. Police were dispatched to the scene.
The intoxicated Asian naked male was returned to his sober boyfriend.
Incredibly, the sober boyfriend was none other than Jeffrey Dahmer. He had drugged 14-year-old Konorak Sinthasamphone, and he was preparing to butcher him when the teenager escaped. The police decision to return the boy to Dahmer led to the 14-year-old's death.
Everybody's in shock. Everybody's in mourning. Everybody's in disbelief. People are angry. People are trying to find solutions.
More than 1,000 demonstrators marched in a candlelight prayer tribute to the victims and their families. Outrage over Dahmer has shifted to police. Bitter charges of racism, a belief that many of the killings could have been stopped.
The police contend they were just doing their job when they handed the teenager over to Jeffrey Dahmer.
This is a matter of grave concern to me and the entire department. I have directed an immediate, in-depth inquiry into this matter by the Internal Affairs Division of the Milwaukee Police Department.
3 Milwaukee police officers who entered the apartment of confessed mass murderer Jeffrey Dahmer and failed to notice anything wrong have been suspended from duty. They were called to the scene last May after neighbors telephoned to report a naked boy wandering in the street.
As the furor over the police handling of the case persisted, Dahmer's confessions continued. By this time, he said he had committed 17 murders, 15 of them in Wisconsin. Dahmer's attorney said he had been placed under suicide watch.
I think he is very destitute of spirit. I think he is in a great, grave state of anguish and desperation.
In July of 1991, Dahmer was formally charged with first-degree murder in the state of Wisconsin. The question to be decided, was Jeffrey Dahmer in his right mind, or was he insane when he committed his loathsome crimes? The trial of Jeffrey Dahmer when the 20th century returns.
What is it, buddy?
Now there's a faster, smarter, easier way to shop for insurance quotes. It's called InsWeb. All the tools, information, and help you need, and it's free. InsWeb, where you and your insurance really click.
Need brakes? Get the best in the business to install them. And a lifetime guarantee honored at every Midas nationwide. Go safely. Go Midas.
You're ready to quit. Great. Now, which patch? With Nicoderm CQ, you step down your dose gradually, but you can't do that with Nicotrol. You can wear Nicoderm CQ 24 hours, so it's still with you when you wake up. You can't do that with Nicotrol. Can it be used by heavy and light smokers? Only CQ. And CQ was the patch most prescribed by doctors. Nicoderm CQ, the power to calm, the power to comfort, the power to help you quit.
ダメだ。このバルブは高すぎるんだ。
サプライヤーはそこしかないですから。美智子はいかがですか？美智子？今オンラインで提示額が出ました。半額です。
どこの会社だ？
テキサスです。
テキサス？どうも、ありがとう。
Sleek, sophisticated, stylish, and yet with an exhilarating V6. Chevy Monte Carlo lets you express that hidden part of your personality, just dying to get out.
Mr. Freeman, how are you? Tommy?
Monte Carlo. The side you show the world is up to you.
Get low APR financing or $2,000 cash back on a new '99 Monte Carlo.
A competition that reached for the stars.
It was a race the Russians were determined to win.
The world saw the achievements, but many paid with their lives.
I'm Arthur Kent. Join me for Secrets of Soviet Space Disasters on History Undercover.
Tonight at 8 Eastern, 9 Pacific on the History Channel. Delve into the past to uncover history's most intriguing mysteries.
An elderly couple is hacked to death. The accused killer is their daughter. A serial killer on the loose. Time to call in Scotland Yard. It was a plot that proposed one nation under fascism.
Unlock history's best-kept secrets. History's Mysteries with Arthur Kent. Premieres August 2nd at 8 Eastern, 9 Pacific on the History Channel.
To many, Jeffrey Dahmer seemed the personification of evil. Some even called him the devil. Others wondered if it was possible for a sane man to commit such horrifying acts of depravity. That was the question that lay at the heart of Jeffrey Dahmer's trial for murder.
His crimes are horrific: murder, mutilation, even cannibalism. Given the weight of the evidence against him, Jeffrey Dahmer today changed his plea from not guilty to guilty but insane.
And you're doing this of your own free will?
Yes, I'm doing this voluntarily.
Dahmer remained emotionless, detached, as his attorney launched an insanity defense, telling the jury that the reason Dahmer butchered 15 men and boys was to satisfy an uncontrollable sexual urge.
He would have all kinds of sexual contact with the dead bodies. He ate body parts so that these poor people he killed would become alive again in him. He kept body parts such as the genitalia. He played with heads, painted them. He wanted to create zombies, people that would be there for him. I accept the responsibility of proving to you that this was not an evil man. This was a sick man.
The prosecution, on the other hand, argued that Jeffrey Dahmer was a ruthless murderer who killed simply for his own sexual satisfaction.
This is not the case of a psychotic man that didn't know the difference between right and wrong. At the time that he killed each of these 15 victims, he appreciated that it was wrong to kill the victim.
Dahmer's insanity plea upset some of the victims' families because that meant many of the details of how Dahmer killed his victims would not come out at trial. Many family members thought that no matter how gruesome the details, knowing everything would help them deal with their tragedy.
I would like to know what happened to my son. It's not sparing me any by not letting me know.
I want to know what happened to my brother from the time that Jeffrey Dahmer met him to the time he killed him.
Family members of the victim are desperate to know everything. Police, they said, have not revealed much, and they want the details of how their sons and brothers died. They also want to know exactly how medical examiners linked their loved ones to Dahmer.
I feel I shouldn't even believe that my brother's dead because I have no evidence. They haven't shown me anything.
The insanity plea also altered the possible outcome of the trial. If found sane, Dahmer faced 15 life sentences in prison. If insane, he would be committed to a mental institution, probably for the rest of his life. As the trial progressed, Dahmer remained an enigmatic figure, an unknowable man who had committed crimes which defied understanding. There was plenty of testimony, though, about Dahmer's bizarre and deadly behavior from one of the few intended victims who managed to survive.
He kind of laid across me, put his head across my chest at that point.
What was he doing with his head?
Like he was listening to my heart, because at a point he told me he was going to eat my heart.
Tracy Edwards also observed Dahmer's obsession with violent movies.
He would like just start rocking back and forth when he, certain parts of the movie or whatever.
You have to say, what did he say, madam?
He was like chanting at certain times and rocking back and forth.
But no matter how sick Dahmer's behavior, the law is precise. He can still be held responsible if he knew the difference between right and wrong.
And what is your opinion?
Mr. Dahmer knew that it was wrong to kill these people.
The jury heard 7 psychiatrists, all of whom said that Dahmer had problems, but only one felt his particular sexual disorder was a defense for murder.
Well, if this isn't mental illness from my point of view, I don't know what is.
Jeffrey Dahmer never took the stand in his own defense. Instead, he listened passively while lawyers and psychiatrists analyzed the gruesome sexual fantasies he acted out.
Showering with corpses.
In its closing argument, the defense said that Jeffrey Dahmer could not have committed those crimes if he had been sane.
He was so impaired as he went along this killing spree that he could not stop. He was a runaway train on a track of madness.
Holding up pictures of each of the men and boys killed during that spree, the prosecutor urged jurors to reject the insanity defense.
Don't forget Matt Turner, extinguished by the defendant. Your life, your life, your life for my sexual satisfaction.
He's fooled a lot of people. Please, don't let this murderous killer fool you.
The jury deliberated less than 4 hours before reaching a verdict.
Did the defendant, Jeffrey L. Dahmer, have a mental disease? Answer, no.
Jurors obviously felt defense psychiatrists failed to convince them that Dahmer was so mentally diseased he was unable to stop the slaughter.
Dahmer said he preferred execution to a life in prison. But in Wisconsin, there was no death penalty.
Jeffrey Dahmer was sentenced in Milwaukee today for the series of gruesome murders that has horrified the nation. Dahmer himself stood and spoke to the court. But first, Dahmer heard the hurt and rage of his victims' families.
Did you ever stop to think that this was someone's son? Did you ever stop to think that this is someone's brother, nephew, uncle, cousin, grandson, or just someone's friend?
You took my 17-year-old son away from me. I'll never get a chance to tell him that I loved him. I'd have a chance to tell him that I loved him the last time I saw him, which will be a year tomorrow. I hope you can deal with what you've done. I'm trying hard to. You almost destroyed me, but I refuse to let you destroy me. I will carry on.
He destroyed the baby of the family, and I hope you go to hell.
My name is Rita Isbell, and I'm the oldest sister of Errol Lindsay. Whatever your name is, Satan, I'm mad. This is how you act when you are out of control. I don't want to ever see my mother have to go through this again. Never, Jeffrey. Jeffrey, I hate you! I hate you! This is out of control! Don't with me, Jeffrey. I'll kill you. God damn it, look at me! I can kill you!
Punch and race fast.
I can kill you!
After a short recess, Jeffrey Dahmer addressed the court.
I take all the blame for what I did. I hurt many people. I know the families of the victims will never be able to forgive me for what I have done. I have seen their tears, and if I could give my life right now to bring their loved ones back, I would do it. I am so very sorry. I know my time in prison will be terrible, but I deserve whatever I get because of what I have done. Thank you, Your Honor, and I am prepared for your sentence, which I know will be the maximum. I ask for no consideration.
He was sentenced to 15 consecutive life terms, 936 years in prison, no chance for parole.
The important point is that the sentence is structured in such a way that this defendant will never again see freedom. All of these sentences are consecutive to the time he's presently serving.
But even behind bars, Dahmer could not escape his legacy of violence and death.
Possibly the most notorious serial killer in American history met his own brutal end today. 34-year-old Jeffrey Dahmer died after being attacked inside the maximum security prison in Portage, Wisconsin. A second inmate was injured. A third prisoner is the suspected killer.
Dahmer's assailant is identified as 24-year-old Christopher Starver, another convicted murderer. Dahmer was killed as he and another inmate were cleaning a prison bathroom.
Christopher Scarver was charged with bludgeoning Dahmer and another convict to death with a steel bar taken from a prison weight room.
For many of the victims' relatives, Jeffrey Dahmer's death came as welcome news.
I feel relieved that
Dahmer's gone.
I'm sorry that happened to Jeffrey Dahmer today, but Jeffrey Dahmer just suffered the same way that he had our children to suffer.
I am happy and very excited that the monster is finally dead.
Early on in Jeffrey Dahmer's life, something went terribly wrong. He was successful at nothing, had trouble holding the most menial jobs. Sick fantasies and brutal acts obsessed him. Ted Bundy, on the other hand, was suave, good-looking, with what appeared to be a limitless future. But instead of using those qualities to make himself a life, Bundy used them to lure his victims to their deaths. The story of Ted Bundy's murderous rampage when the 20th century returns.
Michelin would like to remind you, there's only one safety feature on the road that actually touches the road. Michelin, because so much is riding on your tires.
Rogaine Extra Strength is proven to work for 4 out of 5 men.
I like my chances.
Only Rogaine has extra strength, and it's proven to stop hair loss or regrow hair. Rogaine Extra Strength, proven to work.
It was the most ambitious invasion ever. Now the History Channel and Discover Card bring you this exclusive home video offer, D-Day, The Total Story. Get this remarkable 3-volume collection for $23.95, a 20% savings off the suggested retail price when you use your Discover Card. Call 1-800-399-1070 now. Order D-Day, The Total Story, and get a 20% savings exclusively from Discover Card. Now, more than ever, it pays to discover Platinum.
There's an easier way to get to the front of Universal's River Adventure ride.
Ready, Grandma?
Just use your Discover card and skip the line your second time through. Just one more way it pays to discover.
Oh my.
We all do dumb things. Paying too much for car insurance doesn't have to be one of them. Geico, a 15-minute call could save you 15% or more on car insurance. We all do dumb things. Paying too much for car insurance doesn't have to be one of them. Geico, a 15-minute call could save you 15% or more on car insurance.
How an artillery captain and a teenage boy together made it possible for the blind to read. From the History Channel, the official network of every millennium, this is Time Lab 2000. In the early 1800s, soldiers have no way to read messages at night without exposing themselves to enemy fire. That is, until a French artillery officer, Captain Charles Barbier, creates night writing, a code consisting of 12 raised dots poked onto paper. Eventually, Barbier introduces his system to the blind. One of his students, a young boy, thinks he can make it better. Barbier ignores him. But by the time he is 15, the student, Louis Braille, succeeds in creating a simplified system that uses just 6 dots. And a new world opens up for those without sight. For the History Channel, I'm Sam Waterston.
Ted Bundy was handsome, articulate, smart, charming. He fooled almost everyone into thinking that he was a nice young man with a promising future. But in fact, from 1974 through 78, Bundy brutally murdered at least 30 young women in 5 states. He himself claimed he killed hundreds more. But Bundy never gave up using his charm. He even tried to charm his way out of the electric chair.
Ted Bundy is 1 day away from the Florida electric chair. He has been convicted of 3 murders, and over the weekend he confessed to 20 more. Some officials say he's trying to delay his death by confessing to some of the murders and offering additional information. But the governor of Florida, Bob Martinez, says he will not negotiate with a killer.
For him to be negotiating for his life over the bodies of victims is despicable.
Like so much else in Ted Bundy's case, his execution in 1989 became a public spectacle.
I want him to pay for what he did. He deserves it. It's been a long time.
There was the atmosphere of a public hanging as hundreds of singing, chanting death penalty supporters gathered at the Florida State Prison, demanding the execution of serial killer Ted Bundy be carried out.
It had been almost 11 years since Bundy's arrest on a minor traffic charge finally stopped his killing spree.
Pensacola, Florida police are questioning a man they say may be one of the worst sex murderers of all time.
Police arrested this 31-year-old man after a high-speed chase Wednesday morning in Pensacola, Florida. He claimed to be a Florida State University law student, but now he has been positively identified as prison escapee Theodore Bundy, a suspect in the rape-murder cases of at least 36 young women in California, Washington, Oregon, Utah, Colorado, and Michigan. He is also on the FBI's 10 most wanted list. Among the first to arrive to question Bundy were these detectives from Tallahassee, Florida, where 2 co-eds were murdered and 3 others savagely beaten last month.
Bundy had made his way to Florida after escaping from a Colorado prison where he was awaiting trial for the murder of Karen Campbell. Bundy said he didn't belong in prison.
I've dreamed about flying over those fences. I've dreamed about climbing over those fences and tunneling under those fences. With every other man in there, I've dreamed about being free.
Bundy's dreams came true when he escaped from the Colorado prison on New Year's Eve, 1977, through a loose vent. Just 5 days after his escape, Bundy moved into a Tallahassee, Florida apartment under the name of Chris Hagen.
The apartment is less than a mile from the Chi Omega sorority house at Florida State, where the highly publicized attacks took place in mid-January. When Bundy was arrested, police said he had in his possession 21 stolen credit cards, all from co-eds at the university. This afternoon, Bundy was taken to court, where he was ordered held without bond.
In July 1978, Ted Bundy was formally charged with murder and attempted murder. Always media savvy, Bundy managed to turn his indictment into a press conference.
Mr. Bundy? You told him that you were going to get me. He said he was going to get me, okay? You've got the indictment. It's all you're going to get. Let's read it. Let's go. Theodore Robert Bundy, you are charged, indictment, 2 counts burglary and 2 counts murder in the first degree, 3 counts attempted murder in the first degree. My chance to talk to the press.
Contrary to Section 78204 Florida statute.
I'll plead not guilty right now.
Bundy had a troubled childhood. He was born in a home for unwed mothers, never knew who his biological father was. His mother finally married, and Ted took his stepfather's last name, Bundy. But from an early age, he behaved bizarrely, showing a morbid fascination with murder stories and with death.
In court, the urbane Theodore Bundy proclaims his innocence, saying he's not the one guilty of the crime in which he is said to have sexually mutilated 2 of the victims.
The murders occurred on January 15th, 1978, a little more than 2 weeks after Bundy fled Colorado. Around 2:30 a.m., according to prosecutors, Bundy had slipped into the Chi Omega sorority house at Florida State University in Tallahassee. Less than an hour later, 2 young women had been raped, sodomized, and murdered. 2 others critically injured. Just an hour and a half later, another young woman was beaten almost to death just 6 blocks away. What sorority sister Nita Neary saw when she came home that night became central to the prosecution's case.
The state's star witness, Nita Neary, a former Florida State co-ed, said she caught a brief glimpse of a man wearing a ski cap running out the door of the Chi Omega sorority house with a club in his right hand. The state maintains that that man was the defendant, Theodore Bundy.
Do you remember the man that you saw standing at the door of the Chi Omega house? Do you?
Yes, I do.
Would you point him out, please?
At that moment, when Neary began to point at the defendant, the defense attorney objected. But moments later, Neary said she was sure that Bundy was the man.
I've had to go over this again and again and again in my mind, and I feel positive in my identification.
The trial attracted large crowds, many of them young women.
The trial has drawn women from as far away as Seattle, where Bundy is suspected of other sex murders. Why is this happening? According to one psychiatrist, it is a mixture of fear, intrigue, and in particular, sexual attraction.
Every time he turns around, I kind of get that feeling, no, he's gonna get me next.
As the trial progressed, Bundy became more aggressive in court, finally taking a public role in his own defense.
Bundy, a former law student, got up from the defense counsel table and started questioning a Utah state trooper. The matter at hand, a motion by Bundy to dismiss evidence to be used by the prosecution from a former case when Bundy's car was searched.
The $64,000 question, did you have a search warrant to search my car?
No, sir.
It quickly became apparent that Bundy's skills as an attorney were inconsiderable. His tactics, though, left his defense team in shambles.
Defense attorneys have found Theodore Bundy to be a difficult client. First, one defense attorney questioned his competency to stand trial and then said he had irreconcilable differences with the defendant. Bundy appeared to find this humorous. Then another defense attorney, Robert Haggart, who without explanation asked to be excused and walked out of court, telling reporters later that Bundy wanted too much control over the case.
To replace his chief counsel, Bundy chose Margaret Good, a Tallahassee public defender with little experience trying felonies. She was left with a formidable job of discrediting the state's evidence.
The strongest evidence the state has linking Theodore Bundy to the Florida State sorority killings is a tooth mark found on the body of one of the slain co-eds.
Forensic dentists testified that Bundy's bite marks matched those found on the body of Lisa Levy, one of the victims.
They made the marks.
The bite marks turned out to be an important part of the prosecution's case.
The defense contends that forensic dentistry is not an exact science, and in closing arguments, Bundy attorney Margaret Good characterized the state's case as strictly circumstantial.
The state has not proved that Mr. Bundy and no one else left those bite marks beyond and to the exclusion of a reasonable doubt.
Not so, according to Chief Prosecutor Larry Simpson, who stood behind the crucial bite mark dental evidence.
The bite mark was made at or near the cause of death. That's a lot different, ladies and gentlemen, than a fingerprint. We don't know when fingerprints are left, but by George, we know when a bite mark is left.
For the first time since the trial began, Bundy's mother was in the audience. He has said he fully expects to win this case and be acquitted.
By mid-afternoon yesterday, the jury of 7 men and 5 women had begun deliberating. If he is convicted, Bundy could receive the death penalty.
Though the case was based primarily on circumstantial evidence, it took the jury just 6.5 hours to reach a guilty verdict.
We, the jury at Miami-Dade County, Florida, this 24th day of July, A.D. 1979, find the defendant, Theodore Robert Bundy, as to count 2 of the indictment, murder in the first degree upon one Margaret Bowman, guilty as charged.
Bundy stared impassively as the verdict was read. Outside the courtroom, Bundy's mother said she thought the jury hadn't deliberated long enough.
The jury is totally wrong. They didn't take enough time. Now, how could you consider all those momentous decisions in 6 hours? It's just impossible.
Bundy's mother took the stand during the penalty phase of the trial, the phase when the jury could recommend life in prison or the death penalty as punishment. Louise Bundy argued strongly against death.
I consider it, the death penalty itself, to be the most primitive, barbaric thing that a human being can impose upon another. And I've always felt that way. It has nothing to do with what's happened here. My Christian upbringing tells me that to take another's life under any circumstances is wrong. And I don't believe the state of Florida is above the laws of God.
But the prosecution was equally adamant that Bundy should receive the death penalty for the brutality of his crimes.
You remember the testimony that was presented in this case. Ladies and gentlemen, each of those victims, Lisa Levy and Margaret Bowman, were both beaten about the head. You got to see the body of Margaret Bowman as she lay in her bed as she was found on that morning. Lisa Levy was sexually molested. The evidence showed that one of her breasts had been bitten off, that she had been bitten upon the buttocks, that there had been trauma to both her anus and her vaginal area, that both of these girls, both Margaret Bowman and Lisa Levy, died of strangulation. What a horrible way to go. All the evidence in this case points to one thing, that this was a cold-blooded, calculated, premeditated murder.
It took the jury just 1 hour and 40 minutes to decide that Bundy should die.
We, a majority of the jury, recommend that the court impose the sentence of death as authorized by the Florida statute.
Before pronouncing the sentence, Judge Edward Cowart let Bundy make a statement.
You didn't think you'd get away without me saying something?
Oh, no.
I'm not the one responsible for the acts at the Chi Omega House or Dunwoody Street. I'll tell the court that I'm really not able to accept the verdict. I'm not asking for mercy, for I find it somewhat absurd to ask for mercy for something I did not do. So I will be tortured for and will suffer for and receive the pain for that act. But I will not share the burden for the guilt.
But the trial judge was unmoved in pronouncing sentence.
This court, independent of, but in agreement with, the advisory sentence rendered by the jury, does hereby impose the death penalty upon the defendant, Theodore Robert Bundy. It is of the opinion of this court that there are sufficient aggravating circumstances existing to justify the sentence of death. No reasonable person could differ.
Then the judge stunned the courtroom with his parting words to Bundy, the man he had just condemned to die.
Take care of yourself, young man.
Thank you.
I say that to you sincerely. Take care of yourself. It's a tragedy for this court to see such a total waste, I think, of humanity that I've experienced in this court. You're a bright young man. You made a good lawyer. I'd love to have you practice in front of me, but you went another way, partner.
Bundy says he'll appeal. Meanwhile, he has been ordered to the state prison to await setting of the date of his execution in the electric chair.
As it turned out, Ted Bundy would not be executed for the Chi Omega murders. He was still appealing that conviction when he went to the electric chair for another murder. This one, the grisly killing of a 12-year-old Florida girl. That story when the 20th century continues.
Wood, leather, adrenaline. The new Lincoln LS.
With 10-10-220, you can call around the world at remarkably low rates. Call anywhere in the US, and it's only 99 cents for all calls up to 20 minutes. Canada, too. But I said the world, didn't I? Call your aunt in Greece, a friend in Italy. With 10-10-220, call most of Europe, and it's only $1.99 for all calls up to 10 minutes and just 19 cents a minute after that. Call family in Mexico, and it's only $2.99 for all calls up to 10 minutes and 29 cents a minute after that. 10-10-220. It's much bigger than you thought.
A special week of history undercover.
The secrets of the past revealed.
Cover-ups, tales of betrayal, and secrets lost. From alien obsession to the Soviet space race and the ultimate biological terror.
Its very existence threatened to eradicate humankind.
Uncover the truths.
I'm Arthur Kent. Join me for a special week of History Undercover at a special time.
All this week at 8 Eastern, 9 Pacific on the History Channel.
Modern marvels. This was an epic moment in history. It's the reason we can bridge continents with telephone calls, faxes, and internet communications today. But it started with short electronic signals from sea to sea, first via copper wire and finally with fiber optics. Trace the high-tech trail of the transatlantic cable on Modern Marvels. Tonight at 10 Eastern, 11 Pacific, only on the History Channel.
All next week on the History Channel. It was a time when dreams soared, promise gave way to betrayal, power was obtained by any means necessary, and rebellion created a new vision of freedom. Join Peter Jennings for a remarkable look at the past 100 years. Retrace the moments, relive the memories, remember the people of the century. All next week at 9 Eastern, 10 Pacific on the History Channel.
Kimberly Leach was Ted Bundy's last and youngest victim. She was dark-haired and pretty, like many of his victims. She disappeared early in February of 1978 from the grounds of a Florida junior high school. She was 12 years old.
A month after her disappearance, the body of Kim Leach was found in these woods north of Lake City. It appeared the 12-year-old had been strangled and sexually assaulted. She was clad only in a turtleneck blouse.
By the time Bundy went to trial for the murder of Kimberly Leach, he had already been sentenced to die for the Chi Omega murders.
Ted Bundy seems much quieter these days since his conviction in Miami. Gone are all the pretrial motions and a battery of defense attorneys. He sits quietly with only 2 lawyers at his side.
The trial went quickly, and the verdict came as no surprise.
We, the jury, find the defendant, Theodore Robert Bundy, guilty of murder in the first degree as charged in count 1 of the indictment. So say we all, dated this 7th...
The jury will resume its deliberations on Saturday, this time to determine if Ted Bundy should be given life or sentenced to death.
During the penalty phase of the trial, Bundy called Carol Boone, his girlfriend, as a character witness. In one of the most bizarre happenings ever seen in an American courtroom, they used the occasion to exchange wedding vows.
Will you marry me?
Yes.
And I do hereby marry you. Thank you.
Just a few days after his marriage, Bundy was once again sentenced to death.
It is further ordered that on such scheduled date that you be put to death by a current of electricity sufficient to cause you immediate death.
This death sentence, like the other, set off a series of appeals that lasted for years. One appeal argued that Bundy was mentally incompetent, although he refused to cooperate at the competency hearing.
This is the first time Ted Bundy has left Florida's death row since being convicted in Orange County 7.5 years ago for the kidnapped murder of a 12-year-old girl. Armed guards brought Bundy to the Orlando Federal Building for a hearing to determine his mental competency. His attorneys hope a ruling here will keep Bundy out of the electric chair. I hope so.
2 of Bundy's former lawyers testified that he had not been fit to defend himself during his murder trials, and that he had actually tried to sabotage his own defense. They also pointed to a battery of psychiatric tests.
In 1979, a psychiatrist diagnosed Bundy as mentally ill. But attorneys for the state of Florida argue Bundy waived all rights to an insanity defense years ago.
We obviously feel that the state jury and the state court system rendered a legitimate verdict, and we're trying to preserve that verdict on behalf of the people of the state.
Bundy's lawyers appealed all the way to the Supreme Court, but the court declined to hear the appeal. Each appeal, though, succeeded in postponing Bundy's execution. But after 9 years on death row, Ted Bundy was finally running out of time. In another attempt to stave off the execution, he stunned everyone by admitting his guilt to a whole series of murders.
Serial killer Ted Bundy is talking, confessing to murder after murder, giving investigators grisly details of a decade-long cross-country crime spree.
Bundy was now confessing to murders in 4 western states.
I think he was born to kill. I don't know if it's a bad seed or what, but boy, he is just totally consumed with murder.
One of his first confessions was to the 1974 murder of University of Washington student George Ann Hawkins.
What happened was I knocked her unconscious with a crowbar and handcuffed her and put her in the passenger side of the car and drove away.
Another of Bundy's probable victims was Deborah Kent. She vanished in November of 1974 from a school parking lot in Bountiful, Utah. A man fitting Ted Bundy's description had been seen in the immediate area. Deborah's mother believed that only Bundy could solve the mystery of her daughter's disappearance.
I don't need to know the details or anything. I just need peace of mind that he did indeed kill her and what he did with her body. That is my only concern at this time, and that of our family.
But Bundy claimed he needed more time to provide all the details of his many murders.
I'm not asking for clemency. I'm not asking to get off. They're going to get me sooner or later. You don't need to worry about that. But you've been after this for 15 years. A couple months is not going to make any difference.
That's what I have to say.
But others considered Bundy's confessions just a ploy to stall his execution.
The people of Lake City, Florida are worried this evening, worried that convicted mass murderer Ted Bundy may again win a last-minute appeal in the federal courts. In this small Florida community where Bundy killed his last victim, 12-year-old Kimberly Leach, they want no more delays.
Everybody wants him dead. Real hostile.
Like everybody's ready for it, you know, they think if he gets another appeal, that'll be a gross injustice.
But Bundy's time was running out. Despite his plea for more time to confess, his execution date remained firm. With only hours left, he agreed to a television interview in which he attributed his behavior, in large part, to media violence and pornography.
People need to recognize that it's not some kind of... those of us who have been so much influenced by violence in the media, in particular pornographic violence, are not some kinds of inherent monsters. We are your sons and we are your husbands. And we grew up in regular families. And pornography can reach out and snatch a kid out of any house today. It snatched me out of my home 20, 30 years ago.
Though Bundy did not want to die, he agreed that he should be punished.
I deserve certainly the most extreme punishment society has, and I think society deserves to be protected from me and from others like me, that's for sure.
Bundy spent his last hours providing the police with more details about his murders.
15-year-old Sue Curtis disappeared from the BYU campus in 1975, and now a death row confession by Ted Bundy 1 hour before his execution may have finally revealed the location of her remains.
We should look between, it's going to be hard, between Price and Green River. Maybe 50 yards, and there's the remains of a young woman who disappeared from Brigham Young University in June of 1975.
Time finally ran out for Ted Bundy on the morning of January 24th, 1989, in the Florida State Prison.
When the official witnesses came out of the prison, signaling the death of Bundy, there were cheers. Authorities said that Bundy spent the night weeping and praying. Then at 7 a.m., he was moved to the electric chair.
When he was brought in, he seemed to be being carried, not able to go under his own power. His last words was just give my love to my family and to my friends.
He did not go out kicking and screaming. He went out very calmly.
He was our much beloved son, and we didn't raise him to be this kind of person. We gave him a good upbringing, and something has happened to him sometime since he left this house that has triggered some terrible madness inside of him.
What made that madness so frightening was the charm and the intelligence that masked it, qualities that ultimately led to the violent deaths of at least 30 women. Some final thoughts on Ted Bundy and Jeffrey Dahmer when the 20th century returns.
Select road. Validating tires.
With BF Goodrich tires, it's any road you choose. BF Goodrich tires take control.
If you're one of the 36 million people who wear dentures, this is big. New 5-Minute Polydent cleans stains, then forms an invisible PolyShield barrier so you feel fresh all day. 5-Minute Polydent with PolyShield.
You're looking at someone who just bought a home with no down payment. How? He called Ditech.com and borrowed 125% of the purchase price. With your good credit, you too can finance up to $500,000 with no down payment. Use the extra cash to pay closing costs, pay off bills, or buy new furniture. Buy a home of your own with no down payment. Call Ditech.com at 1-800-71-FIXED for the 125 Dream Loan today.
In
Enjoy our summer before it's history.
That is a very impressive sight.
Sign here? Sorry, I only have a minute. In so many ways, in so many places, it keeps 1 million disasters a day from happening. It's like having a life insurance policy you never knew you had. Gotta go. It's plastics. There's my good girl. Plastics make it possible.
Introducing a radical new SUV. New Nissan Xterra. Choose your sick days wisely.
Enjoy our summer before it's history.
Americans came to know a lot about both Jeffrey Dahmer and Ted Bundy because of the nature and the number of their crimes. The sheer brutality of Jeffrey Dahmer's crimes were at the same time fascinating and abhorrent. What he did and how he did it was worse than the most violent of horror movies. Ted Bundy was so frightening because he did not fit the image of a killer. But even though America came to know a lot about both Ted Bundy and Jeffrey Dahmer, there is a quality about both of them that escapes comprehension. In the end, no one can know the heart of darkness that impelled both men to commit such unspeakable crimes. I'm Mike Wallace, and this is the 20th Century.
The History Channel is proud to present on home video the episode you've just seen of 20th Century. Witness the events that define the modern world. Call 1-800-708-1776, and for only $19.95 plus shipping and handling, receive 20th Century.